What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 256. Phil, how was your weekend that wrapped up as we're recording right now?
It was pretty good. It was pretty much just based on the Bandits game, I guess. I mean, didn't do a lot today. Ran some errands Saturday, but didn't do an awful lot. So it was mainly just all centered around the big Bandits W.
That's fair. Because of the nice weather and the not rain or snow to create a giant mud pit, me and a couple people went out and played disc golf on Saturday morning, and it felt good to get out there because we haven't been out there in a month and a half. But then I can't remember what me and Brooke did before. Oh, we went to the Galleria Mall. Never been there before. There's a lot of stores that I don't belong in because I wear $15 hoodies and shirts that are made up for me because I'm wearing the Buffalo Sports Collective podcast shirt right now. And then the hat, the Bandits hat, that was on clearance also. So yeah, I don't belong in any of those stores. And then this morning we went to the car show down in Buffalo. I have a newer truck, so I'm not in the market, but Brooke was. What are your thoughts on the new Ford Broncos that are out there?
I like them a lot, but when I was looking, not that I could afford the new Ford Bronco, but I was looking at them in general because they're really cool looking and I like them quite a bit, but their reliability scores, I believe it was from Consumer Reports because I bought that little magazine because I was pretty sick of having an unreliable vehicle, so I was looking for cheapest I could get that had a pretty good reliability score. I think the Bronco was not good at all, so I don't think I looked too seriously into it, but I pretty much saw that and stayed away in general. They do look very nice when I see them out there, and when I first started seeing them go out there, I was like, wow, that's a really awesome looking car, would love to have one, and then saw that, and that was a little bit of a turnoff because I don't know, like when I bought the car, I didn't lease it, and I want something that's going to last past me paying it off and then hopefully more than that. So reliability issues seemed concerning to me, but
That's
general,
what I've heard as well. Cool. Yeah, I like the look. Sat behind the wheel. I like it better than cars because I don't like being low to the ground. Just like I'm short, so I'm low to the ground already. So when I'm driving around, I'd rather not be low to the ground as well. And Brooke's driving around a car right now, so our next car. We still got a year, but this was just like looking at what she was interested in. But yeah, I've heard the Bronco. My one buddy said that there's been a ton of recalls on them, so that probably is not a good sign as well. Great. So we got a year to do some research. But yeah, that was the other thing.
I've had 3 straight SUVs, so I'm also quite over the car life. I think the hybrid crossover, I guess is what they're called, like the bigger than a car, smaller than a massive SUV, what we used to be known as an SUV. I feel like that's pretty much completely taken over the road. I feel like cars are being kind of phased out and people are really switching, at least north up here where there's snow and stuff to deal with. I feel like people are really going crossover heavy with a little bit more trunk space and room in general and a little bit more of the all-wheel drive and stuff like that. So I think crossovers, at least up north, have been much, much bigger than cars. I feel like cars are being kind of phased out a little bit. But yeah, I've had 3 straight SUVs, so quite over the car life as well.
Yeah, I started with a car, then I moved to a Ford Escape before they turned into like the family mobile. Like I still had the older version that had like the
square boxy
Jeep
one.
Yeah, the boxier version, not the sleek version. And now I'm in a truck now, so I think I'm on the trajectory to just drive around like a 16-wheeler after this. So sorry. That caught me off guard there, and I don't have anything to drink. But yeah. So we'll dive into the podcast here. Tell us what vehicle you're driving around right now, because this is the vehicle portion of this episode. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article is coming out tomorrow. Pat's article should be coming out on Wednesday. I have to touch base with him to make sure, because it is the first Wednesday of the month, which is guaranteed to be a producer Pat article. And then my power rankings is coming out on Thursday for week 11 after all teams perform. So I think there's going to be some movement in that. We'll go over those games and then look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. You do not have to do that this episode because this is a dedicated Buffalo Bandits episode. They played Saturday night at home in Banditland. They won 15-14. Buchanan, Byrne, and Kluch all had hat tricks. That means 3 goals each. Smith and Frazier had 2 each, and then Weiss and Solver chipped in 1. Matt Vince, 50 of 64 saves. Shots were 64-56 in favor of Rochester. And for those who care about the faceoffs, it was 23-10 for Rochester.
Yeah, this game was very interesting as it kind of went on. It was early on, it was the Bandits with their early kind of 4-goal lead. I think it was 4-1 after the first. And then after that, it was honestly just back and forth the entire game without any true runs until the fourth quarter when Rochester really kind of took over, put on a ton of pressure to try to catch up and went on their 4-goal run. But a 4-goal run by the Bandits, 4-goal run by the Knighthawks, everything in between those two, again, in the first quarter and the fourth quarter. So second and third quarters are pretty much just very consistently back and forth. The Bandits got 3 in the second, and then second into the third, Rochester also got 3. But for the most part, every single time one team scored a couple or one, the other team would strike right back. So it was great to see the Bandits have that early lead so they could kind of continue to play that style where it was very back and forth, not allowing Rochester to get on a run until their kind of end of game collapse ended up making it way, way closer than it seemed. But I don't know. It was a weird game in the fact that even though it was very back and forth, I felt very comfortable with the Bandits the entire game. And I don't know if trying to take the fan aspect out of it while I was in the press box made a difference, but the entire game I was pretty relaxed watching it as far as, like, I really thought the Bandits were just the better team, were going to win, and especially as they continued to not allow Rochester to really go on a run until the very end, and then obviously things start to fall apart a little bit in the fourth quarter at the very end. 2 back-to-back games, which was mentioned by multiple people in the post-game interviews, which we can go over, but I just thought it was a very even game, but one that I thought the Bandits were the better team and would eventually kind of just win the game, even though it was very back and forth, and they held on just enough to do just that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a 4-1 lead after the first quarter kind of eases everything, and including that 3-goal run they had in the second, like you mentioned, building that I think they were up to 8-3 at one point before 2 goals by Rochester in the minute 20 and on. But it definitely felt one that Buffalo just felt like they were the superior team in this game. And that's no knock against Rochester. Rochester definitely has good pieces. They're sitting at 3-4 right now on a 4-game losing streak, but they still have quality players on the other side. But it just felt like Buffalo was more determined to pull this one out. Like they didn't want a massive run that Rochester went on the last time they faced them. It felt like, or even it wasn't even a big run. It was just 10-10 at half and the last matchup they had. But this was another game where you were kind of the offense to me was more of the talking point, and that's what we've been talking about for a few episodes now, where we were talking about, and at least I phrased it, this offense feels like they're working their best when you don't have one guy getting 5 or 6 of the goals. And it's nice to have that in your back pocket to go to and say, hey, we need this guy to just take over the game. He's having an excellent game. Go and take this over. It feels like this offense is just, it functions better when everybody is firing on all cylinders. Kluch had 3-3-6. Weiss 1-2-3. Byrne 3-4-7, Buchanan 3-1-4, Smith 2-4-6, Frazier same thing 2-4-6. When you're spreading all that wealth around, you're getting all the great players involved in the game, and it's keeping them involved in the game, which is keeping their mindset in where they're still doing the little things. Like one of the goals, Frazier set a huge monster pick for Buchanan to free him up to have that lane to shoot and score. It seemed like in the beginning you had the unbelievable goals. You had Kluch behind the back pass to Smith. Unbelievable. You had Kluch, who I personally think he won up Chase Frazier in his between the legs. You had Frazier great pass to Smith on the just as the power play ended, and then it seemed like okay, all these flashy plays are nice, and then they went back to not even going back to, but it went back to a more normal type of offense where the shots were going in that are lasers or well-designed plays where it wasn't like makeshift plays, unbelievable goal scoring. It was more, hey, these are design plays, they're working, and you're beating Hutchcraft.
Yeah, I thought for that, I feel like it was a pretty solid section in the second quarter where Hutchcraft just seemed out of position.
Yes.
There were a lot of long shots going in, and for every single one of them, he looked just lost. They were going, I think it was stick side, glove side, just underneath it, and he was leaving way too much net available on the far side. I think it was Buchanan's goal. It might have been, let's see, his first one of the game. He just kind of stepped into a shot, and I feel like he was looking at the net almost kind of surprised with the amount of room he had next to Hutchcraft.
Right side, right?
Yeah, it just went, it went right side on Hutchcraft, and Hutchcraft just looked very, very out of position. Like there was a lot of net wide open, and Hutchcraft didn't really even move that much. I don't think he realized how much net was open. And then there were a few in a row that ended up being like that, and that is around the time Hutchcraft got pulled, and after that he settled in. I mean, the Bandits still were able to put up, a lot of goals when he came back in, but I feel like he did settle down quite a bit, made some huge saves in the second half, but for a little bit there, he had just a terrible run where he just seemed like he had no idea where the net was, and the Bandits were doing a great job taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is the inexperience of him, and you're going against a team that has really good shooters that can exploit those openings that they see. But you got to remember, this is Hutchcraft's fourth or fifth start of maybe even his career. I can't remember what he was doing. I know he was backing up Nick Rose in Toronto for the longest time until the expansion draft, and he gets picked by Vegas and then traded back to Rochester. So I think a lot of that is just the inexperience he has in net, and I think you said it perfectly. Once he got put back in after he got pulled, it definitely seemed like he calmed it down. He made some big time saves to allow Rochester to get back in the game, but it was definitely there was another moment in this game where the offense kind of went a bit dry. You saw them score at the 8:11 mark in the second quarter. Then they didn't score again until the 7:03 mark in the third quarter. That's well over 15 minutes without a goal, and you scored 15 in this one. It just felt like when the offense dried up, you kind of gave that opening for Rochester to hang around a bit, and that's exactly what they did, and they came back in this one.
Yeah, I guess we can switch. We'll go back to the offense and a few players specifically in a moment, but we can switch to the defense and Vince. I thought Vince played fine in this one. There were only one or two that I really had that I thought he would have wanted back. For the most part, the defense just, they're playing so strange. They play really well, really good, and then just have momentary lapses where they play awful. And it looks like they just don't know how to play lacrosse for just random little spurts throughout the game. So I think the majority of the game, obviously, I'm not going to say like first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, but for the most part, as a whole, for a 60-minute game, I feel like they play, 45 to 50 minutes. They're playing really, really good defense, giving Vince great looks, playing off each other really well. And then there's just 10 minutes throughout the entire game where they just have these mental lapses and they play terrible. I mean, there was, I don't know which goal it was. I'm sure I have it in my notes, but there was a goal where they could not get the ball. Like, no one could pick the ball up. There was two of them, actually. There was one where nobody could pick the ball up right in front of the net. Fields scooped it up and had a wide open look on Vince. That was number 2. Yeah, Steve Priolo and Josh Byrne were in between. He couldn't get the loose ball. Fields was all alone. And then the second one, I think, is going to be the 11th one where they're on the penalty kill. Hang on.
Or are we thinking there's a third out there then?
No, it was the 11th goal where they couldn't get it out, and then all of a sudden, like, it wasn't even just McKay's terrible giveaway right to Fields who just scooped it up off him.
Or Wires did it once where he couldn't get it out, and I can't remember who the third. It might have been Martin couldn't get it out. I know it was 3 of the 4 defenders couldn't get the ball. Like, we were laughing in the seat. I was like, they haven't been able to get it over half field in 2 full minutes.
And then it turned out to McKay just literally pretty much handing the ball to Fields. Fields had a wide open breakaway and buried. It was just, it's moments like that. And it's just, I don't get it. Like, it's still the same defense that's out there, and they play really well at times throughout the game, and then other times they'll just have those moments where they just collapse. And just, I don't know if it's consistency, I don't know if it's the inexperience where, like one guy can kind of pull the rest of the defense down. So if one guy has one bad shift, it pulls the rest of the defense off and makes them look not as good as a unit. But I don't know, they just need to play more consistently. I mean, we knew going into this game Rochester was averaging 13 goals a game. They're the best offense by a per game basis, goals per game basis. They are the best offense in the entire NLL. So it's going to be a good team to try to stop. But at the same time, I don't know, I just feel like they should be doing a better job than they are.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, you kind of broke it down perfectly, where I think this might have been a good step in the right direction. I thought Toronto's was a good step in the right direction, where it wasn't a full quarter that the defense was just disappearing. It wasn't a full half. It was just moments. So as somebody here is usually the glass half empty guy, I will take this as a glass half full in this one, where I honestly think this is a step in the right direction for the defense. I mean, I can run through the goals right now because a lot of people are still blaming Matt Vince when 14 go by him, and they're not looking at the whole giant picture, which is, come to expect when you're not when you're going in with preconceived notions of Matt Vince is struggling, he's old, he's lost a step. You're kind of just noticing all the negatives, where if you look at the grand picture of it, you can't just blame the goalie. It happens in hockey. It happens in soccer all the time, where if the ball goes by or the puck goes by the goaltender, the immediate reaction, and that's still in some of the players' reactions too, it's, what did the goalie do wrong? Why didn't he make this save? There's a lot more steps that go with it. Wires on the first goal was too slow on Smith. That one goes by. The second one we already talked about, Priolo and Byrne couldn't get the loose ball. Cam Wires on the penalty kill, it looked like he was going for the block shot rather than to challenge Fields on that one, and that one goes in. Then you had Fields, just an absolute perfect shot. Like, there was no more room except for where that ball went over Matt Vince's right shoulder. McComby one, right before halftime, I felt Matt Vince needed that one. So if you want to blame Matt Vince on that one, sure. That's 1 of 5 so far. Smith, perfect shot over Vince's shoulder again. And I know there's been a lot of talking points of, hey, Matt Vince over his shoulder. It's always been a weakness in his game. Every single goalie in any kind of sport has one type of weakness. And if that's his one weakness, whatever. Lanchbury, huge pick. I can't remember. It was either Martin or Spanger or somebody. He has set a monster pick in and rolled to the net. They found him perfectly. Dribbler by Smith. I still don't know how that ended up by Matt Vince and how it was basically a roller. I couldn't tell where it actually deflected. I'm going to have to watch that one back again. Lanchbury, perfect pass to a wide open Smith who was coming from behind the net. You had Waters, another hard pick on Smith. Then it was a weird loft shot that went in. The 3 giveaways on the penalty kill like we were talking about, and Fields finally scores. So the deflected pass off McKay bounces perfectly to Waters. He goes in. Lanchbury running all alone up the middle. And then Lomas. It was a weird bender that he turned around and just fired, and it went in. So really, if I'm looking at this and I'm being critical, there's 1 or 2 that I think Matt Vince should have had. But beyond that, it was either perfect pinpoint shots or just breakdowns in front of him. And those are going to happen, again, when you're facing a very good team and these teams are still trying to score. It's going to happen. But it was more of a... There was just small breakdowns in the game rather than a full quarter. So once again, taking it with a half glass full perspective. I don't know if you have a different perspective, but it's a weird feeling for me to be in a positive light of this.
No, I don't. I was pretty even with you on that. Talking defensively, a individual person, I know he's a rookie, but Wires has been very hot and cold. There are moments where he looks incredible. His transition is good. He's fast. He's blocking shots. He looks great. He's picking off passes. And then he has moments where, like you mentioned, on the power play, he had just a terrible breakdown where Fields did 9,000 fakes and just kind of very slowly walked in, and he just kept jumping and trying to dodge the shot instead of coming out and just checking Fields and kind of ending that play. And there were a few other, like you mentioned, turnovers by him that weren't very good. So he just, throughout just even the last few games, he has really been, I don't know, someone that's easy to focus on defense, which is not what you want. You want to be hidden if you're on defense. You don't really want your name to be called unless you were scoring a transition goal in some way, but he's had moments where he looks really good, and then he's had moments where he looks like a rookie who's not, who's still trying to learn the game and learn what he's got to do. So obviously you're going to take the good with the bad. It's going to happen when you're a rookie. I mean, I'm not saying that they need to bench him or anything like that, but I think this is the difference between having a guy like Wires out there and having a guy like Brandon Bomberry, who has been out there. Adam, sorry. I think Brandon's, wow.
Like, Brandon's Georgia forward. Yep.
There you go. He might have been, I don't know who the former.
I know who you're talking about too, yeah.
Is that also Brandon?
I'll try to find his name. Yep.
It might have been Brandon. Anyway, Bomberry, having him out there, he's just that much more of a lockdown defenseman. He doesn't really have that transition game in him. I think he scored 1 or 2 last year, but he doesn't have that transition ability as much as Wires does, but he is that lockdown defenseman that isn't really going to be making those mistakes. So that's kind of another difference you're seeing on defense, is missing a few of those guys like him, like Sweeting, who's also not out there. Like, those are kind of your bruiser defenders who just won't make a rookie mistake because they're not rookies. I mean, Wires is going to make mistakes. He's a rookie. I mean, he's got to learn from these mistakes, and I'm sure he's going to be an incredible player. So I think they need to stick with him, and it's just going to take him a little bit of time. We know defenders especially take some time to grow with the NLL game. So I think he's just having rookie mistakes, and it's just something he's going to continue to get better with as the season goes on, as his career goes on. Again, this is not a panic button on him, but I think you're just seeing the difference between having a rookie defender out there versus someone that you're used to last season with Bomberry out there, or Sweeting out there as well.
Corey Bomberry.
It was Corey. There it is.
Yep. Had to look it up. But I agree with Cam Wires. I've noticed and it's in the games too. Like, it's not just he has a hot game and a cold game, a hot game, a cold game. Yes. And I think a lot of it is due to him having to step into that massive role that was left by Bryce Sweeting and Adam Bomberry. And you see that he's playing the role of Bryce Sweeting on the penalty kill. Like, every shift he is out there. And it's basically trial by fire is what they're doing with him. And I think a lot of times that's either a good or a bad thing. And it could either help the development of the player, and you can kind of relate it to hockey with Devin Levi, where last year they put him trial by fire. 9 games, let's see what you got. He excelled. This year, can you be our 1A? He didn't excel, and that was hurting his growth, and that's why I put him down to Rochester. For me, it seems like this is helping Cam Wires' growth because, he's playing in front of Matt Vince. So when a goal goes in and it's on Cam Wires, they're going to correct and say, hey, this is what happened on this play. This is what you got to do in the future. That's invaluable knowledge that you're going to be pointing to. He's playing with one of the best defenders that has ever played this game in Steve Priolo. He's playing with Nick Weiss. He's playing with Matt Spanger. He's playing with a guy like Justin Martin who doesn't get enough credit as well. So while he's making those rookie mistakes, he feels like that type of player that's not going to make that same mistake twice. Where, yes, he can be lazy with the ball, or yes, he got pinched off the boards and caused one of those turnovers. Where you can kind of focus on him, like you said, where you're a defender, you don't want your name being talked about. But I feel like when playoff time comes around, and he has had 18 games, and he has had countless over 100 shifts on the penalty kill and hundreds of shifts on the defensive end. I think those minutes and those times and those shifts are going to come in massively come playoff times and in the playoff race to get your playoff spot. I think those will be very invaluable times on the field. I mean, even last year with Dylan Robinson, one of the rookies last year as well, you were seeing some of those rookie moments as well. And if Zach Belter ever gets some time, he's going to have some rookie moments. It happens in every single rookie shift that there's going to be minutes. So we're not trying to focus on him, but there are times where the focus is on him. But I think I think the type of player he's going to slowly become into, these moments that you're seeing where it's those flubs, are going to be slowly washed out, and you're going to see a player who might not ever become a Steve Priolo, but a Steve Priolo-like type of player where he's out there causing havoc because, man, he is a massive dude, and the speed he has is going to be lethal if he can ever put everything together as the years go on.
And speaking of rookies, we can move on to the other one who had his big debut, Christian Watts, forward.
I will cut you a check, Phil. I'm going to write it right now for you. Is it one L or twos in Philip?
Yeah, there's just one.
one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll cut you the check.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you said he would never play this year or make the team, and boom, here he is. Got in his first game, his first action, and he honestly, to me, looked really good. I
He
know,
did. Yep.
even in the post game, they had him talk about his own game. They also had Johnny talk about him and what he thought, and Johnny even mentioned he obviously wasn't running the same amount of shifts that someone like Dane Smith's going to. It's just simply not what a player like that's going to be, especially as a eighth forward. You're a seventh forward in this game.
Yeah, seventh. Yep.
You're just not going to get the amount of opportunities that other top forwards get. But when he was out there, I thought he looked really good. He looked a little timid. I mean, that's what's going to happen in your first ever game. He looked like he was trying very hard not to make any mistakes, but he seems to me like he's going to be a future Buchanan type player. He was sprinting on and off the field. He was working really, really hard. And I think the biggest thing that I saw out of his game for the right side is he was absolutely setting lanes as the big bodied player that he is. He was just setting lots and lots of lanes for the righty forwards. And it didn't look like he was trying to look too often to call his own number, which again, as a rookie in his opportunities, he took a few shots, which is good. I think he needs to get that out of his system and let a few fly. But I think for the most part, he was trying to let the other forwards who have been on the field the entire season and multiple seasons together kind of do what they do best. And he was just trying to contribute in whatever way he could. And a lot of that was by setting lanes or just moving around to find people open. I think it was Fraser who had a wide open look and ended up scoring. And if you watch closely, not only does Watts set a pick, but he also, I believe, takes two defenders with him simply by running across the face of the goal. And then Fraser had a huge wide open lane because nobody cut to him, and Fraser ended up burying the goal. So I don't think his stats really popped off by any means. He got one assist in this game, which is still good to have, but I thought he looked really good for what he was able to do out there in his first ever game.
Yeah, he got the assist on the Frazier scoop and score, which I don't think it was talked about enough, for his knowledge to let the ball keep rolling and then grab it in the perfect time where he's able to leap and dunk it. I thought that was just unbelievable, the smarts he had on that one. But
sorry, Coach. He did it again when there was a ball up against the boards. The two Rochester defenders went in to get the ball, and he just took one step back as they both crashed into the boards, and the ball just went right to him. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's got those smarts to get the ball. But I agree with Christian Watts. The reason I didn't think, and this is no knock, because I don't watch game film of players coming into the league. I just watched, the only time I saw him was the open practice. And for me, I'm just going on the numbers. He was a fifth-round rookie, I believe. Let me keep looking this back up because I don't want to get it wrong. I'm pretty sure, and I'm still talking, trying to buy time for me to find it. No, he's a fifth-round rookie from 2022, 82nd pick. So that was what I was going on, where he's a fifth-round rookie. Yes, he made the practice squad, and I saw him. He's a big dude, and he busts his butt. And I know he's a local guy as well. My thought was, are they just going to leave him on the practice squad to cook and get better and develop down there? I just never thought there would be a time where you would see him be introduced into the lineup and jump a guy like Sam LaRue. That was my thinking, was there's already another guy ahead of him. He's the fifth righty on the team right now. You're going to need an injury on the righties just to move up a spot, and then you still got to jump Sam LaRue. So I don't know if he jumped Sam LaRue in the overall pecking order, or they just wanted to give him a run here because it was a home game, whatever it was. But I completely agree with you. He's going to be a bigger bodied Kyle Buchanan based on what we saw in that game. My biggest hope, though, is he doesn't lose that type of hustle and that type of energy. I want to see that in his second game. I want to see that in his fifth game. I want to see that in his 10th game, because a lot of times you see rookies out there that are a bit tentative, like you mentioned. He was definitely trying to set lanes. He was definitely trying to, hey, this ball's in my stick. I have players around me like Dane Smith, like Josh Buchanan, or Josh Byrne, Chris Kluche, all those type of players. I got to get them the ball and set them up. So my biggest thing to keep an eye on with him is if he wants to keep being that next guy up into the lineup, he's got to keep that hustle around. And based on everything I'm seeing and everything I'm hearing about him, he's going to do that. I'm just a little concerned because a lot of times when you're the rookie coming in, you want to try to make a name for yourself. You just want to do anything wrong and you want to keep hustling. I just hope he keeps that gene of, hey, I got to get off the field, get the defender on. I'm sprinting to the bench because you see a lot of the veterans around this league. It's jogging to the bench, slow rolling it to the bench, always the last one off the field. I just hope he doesn't get that ingrained in his head because I absolutely, and this isn't just him. I love those type of players. They bust their butt. Hey, the ball's going the other way. I'm sprinting to the bench, even though there's plenty of time, because the faster you get to the bench, the faster the defenders can get on the field, and the faster they can set up on the defensive end.
Yeah, before we switch to the player we think he can possibly replace in the future, he did play for the UCBLL,
Yes.
and his teammates Chris Coutier, Ian McKay, Dane Smith, and Byrne all actually coached him, so I think that does have quite a bit to do with possibly getting that opportunity, or I mean, obviously having half of the offense be your coaches is kind of a big
Helps.
nod for him. But not only that, they help shape his game, and he can kind of play off of that, which I think helps quite a bit. So, and from what I heard in the post game from Josh Byrne, he said that he's just that kind of player. Like he always has been. He's always been that
Good. Yep.
hustle guy, that positive attitude guy. So again, like everything that they described in Christian Watts is exactly what you see in Kyle Buchanan, sprinting on and off the field, sprinting for loose balls, sprinting for that, that second opportunity, that third opportunity, even though he's 35 years old, like you said, a veteran on the team. Every single time he runs on that field, he's sprinting on the field, he is sprinting off while these other guys jog. I think Christian Watts will be that exact kind of player where he's just nonstop hustle, no matter what, always staying positive. And I think he has, no offense to Kyle, who also just put in a Hattie himself, I think Christian might have a little bit more of that, I don't know, shot ability, offensive ability, and then obviously the extra added ability to set lanes for Chase Fraser and Dane Smith, I think will just be massive. And eventually Nanakoke, when he gets back, obviously this is way down the line because when Nanakoke comes back, Watts will likely be back on the bench. But I think in just the future grand scheme of things, I think Watts could fit into this team very well. But switching focus to Buchanan, who does not get nearly enough credit from around the league for what he does day in and day out. And his hat trick was great. I'm really glad that he got 3 goals. But to me, everything about Buchanan is pretty much summed up in the Bandits' game-winning 15th goal that he only got the 3rd assist on. If you watch that play closely, it is the end of the shot clock. I don't know how much time. I didn't go back and watch it yet, but I think it was under 5 seconds left in the shot clock. Buchanan had the ball. He threw it at the net and threw it off of Hutchcraft's chest, sprints in after his own shot, grabs his own rebound, and then he immediately passed it to Smith. Smith passed it to Cloutier. Cloutier scored, and that ended up being the game-winning goal. It's that kind of hustle and attitude that he's always had, where he didn't just dump the play into the corner and get his defense on because you had a lead at that time and just, run off and switch. I mean, the fact that he was able to get a clean shot on net and then follow up his own rebound to scoop that ball, reset the shot clock, and then that ended up leading to the game-winning goal. Like, that's just the kind of player he has been for this team. And I know you and I don't know if concerned's the right word, but he definitely would have left a hole if he decided to retire after last year, given his age and everything. But the fact that he came back, put in a hat trick in this game, and again, that assist, his lone assist of the game, ended up being the game-winning assist on that goal. And I think that just sums up the kind of player he is. And even the goal that got called back on him was that same kind of play where he's just following up on a rebound and he's able to get the rebound and score. It's just that kind of hustle that he's always had. And I feel like he's just such an underrated, underappreciated player in the NLL for what he does for the Bandits, and just throughout the NLL, he's just one of the hardest working players, and he gets rewarded in games like this.
Yeah, I mean, you can even point out he is out there for almost, I know last year was every single faceoff. This year, I think it's almost every single faceoff. But the things he does on that faceoff, where, yes, he might not get a caused turnover or pick up a loose ball, but he's buying the time to get the defenders set up, and then he sprints to the bench like we were talking about, hoping Christian Watts stays that way. And he just causes that havoc out there where, again, he might not put up 50, 60, 70 points on the year, but you got to look at all the intangibles he puts up. Even the loose balls, he was over 90 loose balls last year. He's closing in on 1,000 loose balls for his career. A player of that stature, and this is, again, no shot at him because he's probably taller than me and bigger than me, but a player like that shouldn't be getting 1,000 loose balls in his career. It's just the pure hustle that he displays his entire career, including this year, where he's out on every faceoff. He's causing the havoc. He's kicking up those loose balls. He's out there till the final second on every single shot clock, and then still beats some of the forwards back to the bench. So you hit the nail on the head. He is one of those players that isn't talked about enough, but if you were to lose him, which was the worry in the offseason, is he going to go out on this high, getting his title? Is he going to go back? He has a family. He's getting up there in age. It's no shot at what he is on the field, but it's, does he choose to move on to the next chapter of his life past this? And we would understand that. But he would have left a glaring hole for those righties, let alone for the entire offense and the team in general. So I really happy that you brought him up on this one, because he is one of those players that is not going to put up the numbers. Yes, he just did have a hat trick and a 4-point night, but he typically doesn't put up those numbers. He's going to have a goal or an assist or 2 assists in the night. But you look at the game film and you watch what he does off the ball and picking up the loose balls. And even if the loose ball numbers aren't there, he's in the crowd on every single one. He is one of those players that never, ever loses any type of energy. He's one of those, like, if you're playing NHL, he's one of those ones that is that short little sniper guy that never loses energy, and you go, dude, I'm gassed. How do you still have full energy holding down the trigger of just beating everybody down the ice? That's the type of player Kyle Buchanan is.
And to mention, I know you mentioned his stature a little bit. I mean, that is also just a testament to his hustle and his work ethic, because he is only 5'8". Those kind of players aren't typically out there for the face-off, because the guys who are out there for the face-offs are players that usually are bigger bodied, who are boxing out and trying to play really physical to get that ball. Yet he's 5'8", and he's out there fighting these monsters, and he's the one coming away with a lot of those loose balls, like you said, causing the havoc to let somebody else pick up the loose ball. So just the fact that the team trusts him in those positions just is another testament to just how incredible he is and what he means to this team. And again, around the NLL, it's players like this that just go brutally underappreciated for what he does and just what he means to this team. And in this game especially, I mean, they needed every single goal they could get. He puts up a hat trick and then gets the third assist on the game-winning goal. Just an incredible game from him. And I think he ended up getting the belt. And Johnny also mentioned in the postgame that he's a player that doesn't get talked about enough or appreciated enough, so he was happy to give him the belt in this one because he deserved it.
The only other thing I have left in this game, and I don't know if you have anything else, is it was in the final 10 seconds, and it was after Matt Vince made the save. He had the mindset, and that just tells you how high his IQ is, to call a timeout. And it's not one of those situations where, in a lot of these situations, you see the goalie get the ball, and then they just look for the outlet pass, and it gets turned over. Or they just gun it down the other field, and then the other team still has 3 or 4 seconds to run it up the field and try another opportunity. He called the timeout. They developed a perfect game plan where he sets the pick on, I believe it was Gilray. Dane Smith goes behind the net, and guess who it is that comes open in the midfield? It's Kyle Buchanan. And he gets the ball to Ian McKay and runs out the clock. Now, that might seem smaller to the average fan and the person that's just sitting in the seat enjoying the game. That might just see like, hey, this is a normal type of save. You know, he calls the timeout. But to be in that mindset of 6-on-5, I have to make this save. It comes right to you. And to have the mindset of, hey, I'm not looking for the outlet pass. I'm not looking for this. I'm calling a timeout so we can make the perfect play design to actually run out this final 10 seconds. That was a genius high IQ move that will not be talked about. They will not be written about. It will not be out there in the press. It will not be out there in the news. It will not be out there in the articles. But it's one of those plays that will not make the box score, but is another critical part, because it was a 1-goal game. If he would have just looked for an outlet pass, it's turned over, they get another opportunity. Whether they would have scored and tied it, this is a different story. But he was able to have Johnny T draw up the perfect play to run out the final 10 seconds of that game.
Yeah, the other thing that's interesting about that, and it was something I was just wondering, and I haven't had a chance to look it up while watching that. I know the goalies specifically, obviously there's the 8-second shot clock that you have to get over before the 8-second violation. You have to get it over half before then. But I think the goalies also have their own delay of game ball turnover, that if the goalie is just holding onto the ball too long inside the crease, that it's a turnover of possession as well. And I don't know what that time is. And obviously in
I
a
know
situation,
he ran out of the crease, though. He was out of the crease when he called that timeout.
Okay, so I mean, I guess the thing I was wondering is if, like, and again, in that situation with that many people on the field, that's not something you're going to gamble with or risk.
Right.
But I was just
The
wondering,
internal
like
clock he's
if
got
you
too,
call it at 23 seconds and call a timeout, does that reset your entire shot clock after a timeout? Like, do you get the
You mean the
extra-
8 seconds over the field?
Correct. Like, if you have, like, if
I
there's
don't
23
know.
seconds
I
left
don't
on the shot
think so,
clock, and then
though.
he, like, waits until that last second to call the timeout, do you get the 30 seconds back, or even just the 8 seconds
You don't get
again?
the 30 seconds back, that's for sure. But I don't know if you restart the 8 seconds.
Because that was just random
be
thought.
smart, yeah.
Nothing that really had to do with this
Right.
game, but just
That is
just a
interesting.
thought in general.
But yeah,
But yeah, when I saw him call that timeout, I had the exact same thought that you just did. Was, wow, heck of a call. And again, seems so simple, but a rookie goalie probably not going to do that. They're likely going to panic in that situation, like you said, try to find a really quick outlet, or at the very kind of worst, just kind of launch it down the field and hope that your team picks it up, or at least you waste a couple seconds. The other team gets the ball. I think, did Rochester already call their timeout coming out of that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
remember.
So they could have had a timeout, drawn up a play, and considering they had all of the momentum in the fourth quarter there, and that's the only other thing I really want to talk about, because it was mentioned a few times in the post game, was the fact that this is back-to-back games where you've had a sizable lead going into the fourth quarter and you pretty much almost blow it. Obviously, Toronto was closer to the end of the game. This one got very close with plenty of time left, and luckily they did run out, but they still had the opportunity to tie it right at the end there in that scramble. And even before that, I mean, there was a minute 12 left when they got it within one. But even before that, you were up 14-10 with 10 minutes left in the game. And Johnny mentioned it. I think Byrne was the other one who was asked that, just what's going on with these fourth quarters. It's back-to-back games that you almost let a lead slip. And obviously these teams are really good. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to catch up and not lose. But the Bandits have to find a way to close these games out a little bit better. It's back-to-back games against good teams that you've really let the other team right back into it when you had a good lead at one point right in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, even in this game, it was 14-9 before Rochester scored with 10 minutes left. So 5-goal lead, 10 minutes left. For them to end up with only just a 15-14 win is a little bit too close, and something they just have to try to buckle down in the fourth quarter a little bit better.
I agree. I think that still comes down to gaining more experience on the defensive end with the players that you do have. But I have nothing else to add to this game. We talked about 45 minutes about it. So we will move on to the possible milestones that could have happened. Again, you can find all these at Buffalo Sports Co. on X. Like I said, we post these all leading up to the games. There's no game next week, so don't look for them there. But some milestones did happen. Matt Vince did move into sole possession of third place in NLL history at 277. Josh Byrne did pass the 400 career point mark for his career. Dane Smith crossed 1,000 career points. Dane Smith also passed Rich Kilgore, who was in attendance last night, for sixth place in Buffalo Bandits history. And Ian McKay moved into ninth place, passing Chase Frazier and Rob Kirkby for face-off attempts. And huge milestones in those nights. And I honestly think, Phil, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back, I think this is the most times since we started this podcast that people have actively mentioned these milestones, both in the games, in articles, online, whatever it is. But I don't know if it's us. I doubt it's us, because we're not this monster podcast. But it was a nice little thing that they're paying more tribute. I don't care how it started, whether it was us or somebody else. I really, really like that they're actually pointing out these possible milestones that do happen in these games and in live time.
Yeah, it's really nice, especially this one. I mean, that's 3 gigantic milestones all happened in one game. Really great to see Josh and Dane, the dynamic duo, both hit crazy milestones for their careers in the same game. And then Matt Vince just continues to climb up the NLL history leaderboard for pretty much every single thing that he does. And the fact that he's played 277 games is pretty ridiculous. That's just an insane amount of lacrosse, and he still continues to play at an insanely high level. So him and Johnny are probably fighting it out a little bit for who I forgot. Was Johnny 43? I think when he finally retired. So
I thought he was 45.
or 45, even better. So we'll see if Vince can keep playing that long. But all these milestones, especially again those big three, that's a really gigantic 3 milestone set. And like you mentioned, they're calling them out during the game, which is really nice. As soon as they happen during the game, they're calling them out. And like you mentioned, however it's happening, it's really good to get a moment to appreciate those players, because I feel like those players, especially the big ones that hit these gigantic milestones, don't really take the time to appreciate it themselves at all. A lot of them are very team focused. I know if Byrne or Smith or Vince, if any of them got asked about these milestones, that they would immediately just kind of push it off. They'd be like, yeah, it's great, but whatever happened in the game happened in the game. We got the win, and that's more important. So it's good that the team takes a moment to appreciate what they do, because I don't think the players, I mean, they might in the privacy of their own homes, but it's not something they will really publicly show that these milestones mean that much. So it's nice that the team does.
Yeah, 2 real quick things. Sweeney did ask Dean Smith right at the end one, talking about the 1,000 points, and he did just point off, I have great teammates and all that kind of stuff, but getting the win here, and he even posted on the Instagram story today that 1,000 points is great, but that title felt 10 times better. And if I don't continue this trend or something like that, it's because JT was benching me. So that was a nice little backhanded compliment there, that it likes a little shot at his coach. But the other thing, and I noticed this the other day, and people have been posting it for a while now, and I think it's nice to notice here. You know how the old saying, I wish I knew I was in the good old days when they were happening? I think it's important for us to recognize, and not just us on the show, but us in Buffalo and Banditland and NLL, what we're witnessing between Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, both of their names and numbers are going to be in the rafters. So I know both of them, just within the last 6 months, both of them signed 6 or 5-year deals with this team. So they're going to be around for a very, very long time now. But I think it's important to realize just how unbelievable this duo is, and how there could be a possibility. I know we saw it with John Tavares and Mark Stainhouse years ago, but there is chances. You see it in other sports, you see it in other teams, that sometimes when the great leave, you never see this again. So I think it's important for us to at least take some moments to realize what incredible history we're witnessing and being able to be witnesses to, between Josh Byrne and Dane Smith playing together, that dynamic duo. The numbers that they're going to continue to put up are going to be historic. And it's times like these where you see 1,000 points, and we're just talking about on the fastest milestone minute. But to witness what they're being able to do on the field is just disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, once again, sad for Josh Byrne a little bit that
right.
Dane continues to just overshadow him in every way, and I feel like
400 points, congrats! I got 1,000 points on that
right.
night.
I feel like Dane just gotta love it. Like when these moments happen, obviously they're happy for each other, but I feel like away from the cameras, away from everything, they have to, Dane's just got to be rubbing it in his face so much, like exactly what you just mentioned. Yeah, 400 points is great. I just got 1,000, so try to keep up,
catch up,
try to keep up, Byrne. But yeah, it's incredible what we're witnessing. I think they said Dane was 13th all time. Is that?
He's the 14th person to cross the 1,000.
I was trying to look it up real quick. I couldn't find it. NLL's record book is down on their website because
What? No.
But yeah, I mean, even that 14th all time in NLL history, and he's only in his early 30s, in the prime of his career. It's just ridiculous what we're witnessing, and I'm sure Josh at some point in his career, if he keeps up what he's doing as well, will cross the 1,000 point mark as well. So hopefully they can still be on the team, still doing what they're doing when they both get to the next step in their careers. But like you mentioned, just enjoy what you have while you're witnessing it, because it might not happen again, and you are continuing to witness history, which is a lot of fun for us.
So we will look around the NLL right now. We mentioned it. There were 7 other games going on. The Colorado-San Diego game that started on Sunday at 6 p.m. That's still going on, so we do not have the final there. But Starting with Friday, 7 p.m., Halifax versus Philly. Halifax won that one 15-14 in overtime. They got their overtime revenge from earlier in the year where Philly actually came back and beat Halifax in overtime. Following game, half an hour later, Vancouver and Georgia. Georgia won their game in overtime 12-11. Then later on in that night, Friday at 9 p.m., New York beat Calgary in Calgary 11-10. So Friday night, I watched all those games, nail biters all the way through. Vegas goes into Albany and wins 9-6. I don't understand Las Vegas at all. They get the doors blown off them by Panther City the week before. 18-3 at one point. They win 9-6. It's disgusting. Moving forward, you had Panther City in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan wins this one 10-9. Another one-goal game. Moving on later in the night, Saturday 9 p.m., you had Toronto go to Calgary as well. 2 back-to-back home games for Calgary. They drop both of them. Toronto wins this one 9-7.
And we don't have the final score, but San Diego is going to likely win against Colorado. They are
14-5 with 9 minutes to go. Yeah, that seems like
I think they're all right.
It was 5-5 at one point. What the heck?
Yeah, the crazy thing, I mean, again, we talked about it so much, but it's obviously a major focal point this year. The unified standings are just insane right now with everything going on. A lot of these were upset victories. Some of the upset victories that we wanted, we didn't get. But you look at a team like Calgary, who just had, like you mentioned, lost both games, both at home. Losing a 2-game weekend knocked them all the way down from 2-3 to 2-5. That 2-game swing is gigantic. They are now sitting second last in the entire league because of that, while at the same time New York Riptide went up to 500, and now they are a top 8 team looking at playoffs. So just absolutely insane what these standings look like. And Johnny mentioned it a little bit, that a win doesn't really help you move up, but a loss absolutely helps you move down. And just seeing the extreme logjam that we talked about so much. I mean, there are, I think I counted 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 8 teams under 500 right now on the season. New York at 500, and then 6 teams above 500, which is just nuts. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 teams sitting at 3 and 4. So if you're in that middle log jam, which a lot of teams are, one win will help you move up, and a loss will absolutely help you move down. But I think Johnny was mentioning at the top of the standings, you got 6-1, 6-2, 5-2, 5-3, and then Halifax at 4-3. So trying to really catch up to those teams. A win doesn't really do as much as a loss will absolutely hurt you. So just a really interesting start to the year. And the Bandits, after this last game, which I'm just looking at, what is 5-3? Is that right? Is 5-3 right?
Buffalo? Yes.
Yeah. So without looking super close at this, I know their offense has been great all year. They are the first team to cross the 100 goal mark, if this is all up to date and accurate, something I'm learning right now as I look at the standings. So congrats to Buffalo, first team to cross the 100 goal mark for goals for. Good for them. We mentioned their offense was going to be really good this year, and they are proving that. So that's fun.
It also helps that they've got 8 games played. So I think San Diego, where are they at right now? What's
they have
their score?
7
They're
and
still
84.
14.
So they'd have to get
so they're at
20
8,
to catch
98. You have Toronto, who's at 84, but they've only played 7. Albany's at 92. They've played 8. So on and so forth. If you really want to look at a team, Georgia, 99 goals, 9 games played, so they're ahead of them. But I agree. But going through some of these games, Halifax and Philly, man,
I just wanted to help, and I didn't get it.
I'm terrified of Dawson Theed. I don't know if you've seen him play, but he's a monster of a man, and he's actually putting up numbers now. He's going to be very tough to cover. In the Georgia game, they got timely goals, but their offense is still very scary to me, and Dobson has been up and down too much this year to really be a reliable team. And taking Vancouver to overtime and home, that's not really what position you want to be looking at. New York, I was giving you crap earlier in the season. Congrats to you. I mean, they're looking like a legit possible playoff team now. Jeff Teat, he is on an absolute heater the last 5 games. He is, I believe, we'll have to look back, and that was one of the things that we were going to be doing on the bye week, looking at what our bold predictions are and possibly updating them. But Jeff Teat, I believe one of my bold predictions was he was going to break the all-time points record, and I think he's on pace to do that again, but we'll double check that. But Calgary's in big trouble, big trouble, and it's not Del Bianco's fault. It is a lack of offense, and I was saying that pre-season as well. Vegas, I don't know. I have no idea. Albany, what's happening? I think they're coming crashing down to earth. I know they didn't have Jameson, but they didn't lose because Getty was struggling. He was made 45 saves. I mean, their offense just dried up. Simmons, no goals on 13 shots. Not good enough. Panther City, they fell back down to earth as well. I mean, Saskatchewan got a much needed win to keep their possible playoff hopes alive. But, I mean, Donville, no goals. Malcolm had 3, but Crawford had 2, so that was 5 of your 9 goals there. And then Toronto, just another absolute. Buffalo's been the only one that's been able to put up goals on them. And I know that's not shocking because Buffalo tends to have Toronto's number, but man, 9-7. Nick Rose is just ridiculous when he's not playing Buffalo. And I know this was the second game in Schreiber. He had 7 points out of the 9 goals, but Toronto definitely still scares me. I understand that Buffalo just beat them last week in Hamilton. Completely get that, but Toronto's just they're so good, and they likely won't have to go through Buffalo to get to the finals to face them. I don't know, Phil. It's that cluster of teams that they got right now is it's like I think you summed it up perfectly. A win doesn't do tons for you, but a loss will significantly impact you.
Yeah, it's just it's wild. And I mean, it's really good that the Bandits were able to, we didn't talk about this much at all, sweep the series with Rochester,
Yes,
so you don't have to worry about anything as far as playing them again. The Firewolves, I know that game's not quite yet, but I mean, them and Halifax are massive games coming up for the Bandits. And the Firewolves one, what they'll look at, I believe it goes to tiebreakers, goals for, goals against. So even if they split the series with the Firewolves, you're going to have to absolutely crush them in order to really catch up because they put quite a big whooping on you in the first game. So that'll be interesting as it gets closer. And for the record, if my math is accurate, Teat, if he keeps up the current pace he has as far as points per game, will be far short of the all-time record, but if he continues
but I meant more his last 5 games if he keeps that pace
right, if
up.
he keeps putting up closer to 9 points a game,
yes.
then
that will help.
it'll be probably pretty close.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that on our bye week. We got Friday and Monday show to not have any Buffalo Bandits action previews or post games because they're on bye. But Phil, we're right at that hour mark. Is there anything else you would like to add to this show before we shut it down for a full work week and we get ready for our Friday show to try to fill some time until the Buffalo Bandits have another game in Halifax?
No, I think we're good. Another victory. Wasn't the simplest victory at the end. Got a little bit too close for comfort, but they got the win. They're looking a little bit better. I know we were not hitting the panic button, but we were a little concerned when they were 3-3 going up against a lot of really tough teams coming up. So far in the 4-game stretch that they have against top talent in the entire league, they are 2-0. So we will take it.
We will take it. So on our Friday show, like we mentioned, the Sabres are back in action tomorrow on Tuesday. Whoopee. We get to talk about them again. And Samuelson, out for the year. Jack Quinn, 6 to 8 weeks. Just keeps getting better. Keep chugging along, guys. 33 more games, Phil. 33 more games. But, yeah, we'll also break down. We got some ideas that we're going to be floating by, possible reactions to the almost midway season, possible, awards to hand out, possible looking back at bold predictions. We got a few days to work up exactly what we're going to be talking about. So if you're interested in Phil and I just filling time, Friday is the show for you. And then stick with us for Monday because we'll fill more time. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Remember, Phil's article drops tomorrow. Pat's is likely on Wednesday, and then my power rankings for Week 11 will drop on Thursday. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. It massively helps us there. So until next time, bye-bye.